want to thank everybody for logging in tonight. And this is going to be fun for me. So I thought I would take you along with kind of my process of setting up still lifes and start one. So I know some of you all have been in my class and it's great to see you all. And some of you all are new faces, which is great. But I have been painting for a long time. I don't know. I think I figured out about 25 years. So, and I feel like I've always kind of been a still life painter at heart. And kind of when I started painting, I started with the still life. So as thinking for tonight, I thought I would go through my thought process of how I arrive at a still life. And I guess I'm repeating myself and how I started. So, but that being said, I wanted to have at least a couple objects out that I could I feel like I kind of free associate a little bit. And I'm letting a few more people in, but so I kind of start with a couple objects and then I just start thinking and let my mind kind of flow. And so I've been painting some of these. I'm a Gen X kid. So I was born in 1977. So I've been exploring a lot of these kind of childhood, whether it's objects or colors or things like that lately. And I've been having a lot of fun with that. And all my paintings, they are pretty autobiographical. And so this is just channeling my inner childhood, I guess. But as I was looking for things to set up, so I got a few things out. And one being, these aren't your typical still life objects usually, but this was on my still life shelves. Sliced peaches and light syrup. I have that. I have, I was thinking of the food that I brought. So instead of painting fruit and beautiful things like that, I have canned sweet peas, which are slimy and gross as I remember them, but I ate a lot of those. And I also have cream corn. So those are some of the things. I was in the store and I was like, these are reminding me of childhood things. And so I thought maybe tonight's a night that I might paint one of those. And then I was also, so these are some of the objects I'm just thinking about. I bought this, I found in a thrift store, this orange juice cup. I thought it was interesting. I didn't have orange juice, but then I thought, what happens if I put milk in it? And I think, so again, just letting my mind go. So I'm thinking about food and I'm thinking about food in the still life. I'm thinking about food that I grew up with. I'm thinking about even textures and colors. And I was thinking about this orange juice glass that I found at a thrift store. That's the exact same kind that I grew up with. And so I got that. And then I thought, kind of reflecting on my past, and another reason why I'm a painter is because things never went together growing up. I always had to take notes and kind of figure out how what the truth kind of was. So I won't go off on that tangent. But what I wanted to get at is, here's an orange juice glass, but it's filled with milk. So I thought that sums up my childhood a little bit. What you see on the outside isn't always how it is on the inside, and things that just don't quite go together. And so, anyway, that's a thought that I had, is instead of filling up what the expected orange juice would be orange juice, why don't I put milk? So, and that's what we had. So, but as I'm looking at that, let me turn on my camera. And I got a couple material fabric out, because when I think about the still life, I think it doesn't always have to have a table and a wall, right? It can be all sorts of things. It can be, it doesn't have to have a horizon line. I used to think it always had to have a horizon line. And I'm sorry if I'm a little bit flustered right now. I'm gonna, okay. Here are some of the things I have. And I thought about, I might be looking down at what I'm gonna be painting. And this was the residue of what I painted my last still life. So I'm thinking about food, and food I have a lot of associations with and a lot of history with. And thinking about this processed food that doesn't stay fresh, or it's food that doesn't stay fresh unless it's canned, right? Peas will go bad, peaches will go bad, all this freshness will go bad, but you can put it in a can, put it on the shelf and forget about it. And it's still pretty good for after a couple of years. So thinking about these things, and I had these, this is a cloth. This is from my parents' wedding in 1972. It's a towel, but the color, some of you all might know this, the harvest gold, the orange, or the brown. This is a newer cloth, but it's, again, I got it because it spoke to some of these colors. And then I was thinking, I put this white milk in, and I was thinking color-wise, would it be interesting to have a napkin? And does this napkin, it's a, and if y'all have any questions, just holler out. But I'm thinking maybe this would be interesting. It speaks to eating and cleaning up, but it also would be another white to kind of bounce off this white. So I have this in the back of my mind. I found this bowl, which is just like, so the price tag on, it's just like one that I had growing up. And so part of me is thinking, what happens if I have the peas here, I have the peaches. I'm thinking, what happens if I even have this, possibly with the milk? Is that too simple? Could this be like a, you know, a light snack or something? You know, if I put, and we might as well open up the peaches instead of cracking open a beer or something, we'll crack open a can of peaches. And so I have these here, and let's see, that gets a lot of syrup. Now that's too much syrup. Okay. So now I want to think, do I want it full? Do I not? Will I even paint the peaches? I have that there. So that makes, let me move this forward a little bit. My dirty studio. So here I have, so I'm thinking now these peaches are kind of interesting. They've kind of fallen, they just happen to, in this kind of circular pattern that kind of speaks to also to peach half. But does that begin to speak to the circle of the orange on the orange juice glass? So formally, that's something I'm thinking about. But then I'm also thinking about, here's the color of these peaches that are, they don't look very fresh, even though it's not out, it's not expired because I just bought them. But do they kind of, I mean, this towel almost begins to be more vibrant and more chromatic than these peaches, which is a little disturbing, but it's okay. So anyway, I'm thinking about this, and then I'm thinking, oops, hold on. So I don't think I put the can, but then let me see what happens if, I know I have a circle there. What happens if I make it layered? Does that gets away from the circle, but then this creates maybe some depth. But anyway, so I'm looking at this, I'm thinking this is kind of interesting. And then I'm thinking, I have this clean napkin here, which when I put down in the light that I'm looking at, I know it's different than what's on the screen, but it looks very almost pink. It almost looks fluorescent on here, which is kind of interesting. But when I reached in, so some things just happened. When I reached in to get the peach out of the can, I put it here. I wiped my hand on this napkin, which is actually kind of interesting because that is, speaks to kind of the motion, speaks to maybe a, you know, something more natural. Let's see. So, I have other objects too, but I'm thinking maybe just having this more straight up few objects might be the way to go. So so I think what I'm going to do, I'm also liking, so what's drawing me to this setup, the oranges, the different orange, the color orange here and the color orange here, the color yellow of the peaches, these colors of the peaches, of the cloth, and then this white here that's folded. This makes almost another stripe with these stripes, this fold. And so, and there's a little bit of a transparency between here and here. So that's kind of interesting. And there's a little bit of, I don't know if this will dry, but this is wet right now, the piece of the napkin that forms almost another circle. So I'm looking at all these things. And so I'm actually, and I can play with this. And I'm going to see, do I want them overlapped or not? And some of this stuff I will experiment once on the canvas. So,
Jenny, hush.
Anybody have any questions or, let's see. I'm going to play around with this a little bit, but what I'm going to also do is play around a little bit more on the canvas. So, I have these two canvases ready, or these two surfaces. And what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about the orientation, what do I want? Do I want them vertical or do I want them horizontal? And and which one do I want? I actually think I want this little bit larger one, which is actually masonite with paper over top of it that's been glued and PVA. So there's a vertical, but then I'm thinking horizontal. And I think this is what I want to do because it speaks to maybe like a placemat or something, so it speaks to in that kind of horizontal way. So, or orientation. So I think what I'm going to do, I think this is what I'm going to work on. And since this is already toned, I'm going to start off and kind of put the placement of my objects. And everything's still open for consideration. So everything's not completely set in stone. And I might adjust a few things. I think I'm going to pull this closer to me, the still life, because I don't want there to be a horizon line. I want to be looking down, like maybe I'm looking down at a table or something. And this is raw umber, so I'm taking raw umber. I'll take a little bit of Gamsol, but I'm taking raw umber, and this is where the edge of the okay, so I have my cup here. I don't draw everything out. This is about the extent of the drawing that I do. So I'm going to go on in with color. And I have two whites. I have a lot of oranges. I have a really saturated orange. So I'm looking at this blank canvas like a writer looking at a blank page and thinking, where do I start? And I think where I'm going to start is, and I'm also thinking, one more thing I'm thinking, I'm going to drain some of this juice out, actually, and see what that does. Because I think I like it, some of the peaches kind of rising up from it. I think I like that. Anyway, that was a small thing, but I think it actually might affect how I paint it. So what I'll do is I see there's some purple here. So even though I'll put that line down, I want some fresh paint in there. So I'm going to get it's going to be a pretty intense cool relative to all these warms. So I'm just going to go with a violet. So, and it's a violet that goes kind of towards red. So out of the two blues that I used, the ultramarine blue goes more towards red. And so that gives me a brighter purple. And I mixed too much alizarin, so I'm going back to a little bit more blue. I noticed that there was, on the rim of this glass, it went quite green. So I want to get this relationship between the green and the yellow. I mean, the green and the yellow, the green and the violet. So I'm pushing this a little bit more towards green. It kind of comes around. And but here's my palette. So this I know looks like a wreck, but I think it's beautiful. And what's on my palette it's a little out of order. Usually I like to have a cool and a warm of every color. And that's usually how, at least I tell students to set up their palette. So no, don't tell anybody this is how I have mine set up. No, but I have cadmium yellow, or cadmium lemon, which I feel like is the coolest yellow you can get. And I used to use yellow ochre, but now this is no longer. I've X'd that out, but the pile is still there. So I have cadmium lemon, cadmium red, alizarin crimson. My cold red is quinacridone red. That was an after. I haven't had it as long, so that's why it's in here. Second generation, right? And so then I have cadmium orange, French ultramarine blue. This, for all those French speakers, you can pronounce it much better than I can. It's Sevres, it's Sevres blue, a Williamsburg color. And then I have chromium oxide, an opaque green, phthalo green, very strong but beautiful color, raw umber, dioxazine violet, which I'm barely showing you. More trash around here. Dioxazine violet, and then titanium white. So those are the colors that I have. And as I'm starting off, one thing, and I'll probably go ahead and do this now too. When I do mix, when I'm mixing a lot of neutrals, I will usually take the 3 colors that I take, is you can make lots of nice neutrals with the primaries, right? I mean, theoretically, you can make any color you want with just the primaries. But how do you make neutrals? Always get tricky. There's a shadow. So anyway, but real quick, when I do make neutrals, what I do usually is make a pile of, these are the 3 colors I use: cadmium lemon, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. And then what's nice about having these piles, I can pull one in, and if I want to make purple, and then it's too purple, then I bring into my yellow. Goes, and it's still too purple or too, I think that's pretty nice. If that's too red, then I go over to here in my green, and I bring in here. So you can make a lot of nice neutrals that way. So let me put this back up here. So here's the setup, and here's the painting. Okay, so I have this kind of violet and this green that I've started with, and I know I need to cover the surface, but it's nice to work on a toned surface because the colors really, you're not battling against the white. So, okay. So I have some of this purple on here. I have some of this green. I'm going to find this yellow and this white, but I think I need to put the white in first. So in this, I'm going to go ahead and make a line here for the top of the glass. And this white, it's a creamier white than this, and this is more transparent, I feel. So I'm going to actually, when in doubt with the white, I usually go to titanium white and ultramarine blue. I feel like that's a nice kind of neutral. And I'm going to put this, and you don't, another thing I always say is just put down a color. You might anticipate what, you can anticipate forever on the palette, but until you put it down, you won't really know how it's going to work. And so I know it's reacting to this gray, but it still looks a little cool. So, and I know once I put this yellow orange down, it's going to be even cooler. So I want to warm this up a little bit. And I think how I'm going to warm it up is using a little raw umber. That's the only earth tone that I have on my palette. And I'm just going to go right over top of that. And that's getting, let's see. And as I'm doing that, I think I also need to, because I want to keep kind of moving around, I'm going to get this gold. And one color that I use often for kind of a gold is chromium oxide, which is my opaque green, and cadmium orange. And I'm going to put that down right next to this. And it gives me kind of a yellow gold color. And it comes in, and I'm actually going to put, it kind of comes over here too. And light source is something interesting to play with too, which I know I didn't too much with this, but it's, I kind of had to keep the light a certain way so we can see the painting. But so I'm putting that down, and I feel like that just made this look much more purple. So what I want to do also is get the peaches in here, which they're more towards yellow. So I'm asking myself, the color of the peaches versus the color of the stripe. They're more yellow and maybe have a little bit more red in it, but there's also, they're not as chromatic. So, so there's a whole lot of questions that I ask myself when I'm painting. And so, because what really drives my paintings, I feel like, is the color. I'd rather have the color be as accurate as I experience it than, I mean, I want my drawing to be accurate too, but the color being accurate and how I experience it is more important to me than getting this drawing completely pen down. So, and I think that's another reason. Wow, see, that's way too bright. That was, but at least I put it down. So, and that was cadmium lemon and a little bit of cad red. So I'm actually going to try that again, but I put white in it too. So, so I know this is the wrong color, but I'm going to put this down too again. And this is going to be my guide. It's actually on the screen, it looks okay. And, but I want to neutralize it a little bit, and yellows are hard to neutralize, I feel. And so when I want this, I think usually you would think to go to purple, the complement, but I find going to with yellow, that doesn't always work. So I'm going to raw umber to neutralize it some. And that's actually feeling better to me. So, and then it comes a little bit here. So, so I have this down, and then the other orange I want to play around with is this really saturated orange that goes cool almost. It's on the glass. And so I'm going to go to my cadmium orange. I find it's, I know you can mix kind of an orange, but I use Gamblin cadmium orange, and which is different from some other cadmium oranges. And it's more, I guess it's more like a, what is it more like? A cadmium yellow deep, perhaps. So I should get a brush out to get this a little bit more, that tone, I didn't clean my brush enough. So I'm going to clean my brush better and just go right over top of it. I have cadmium orange on my brush with some quinacridone red to cool it down a little bit. So I'm starting to get excited about these kind of this relationship between this orange to this kind of orangey color to this kind of golden color. So I'm not too concerned about the drawing yet. I think maybe I should be. But I want to put down this orange up here. So if I compare this orange to this orange here, I am going to, I feel like it has a little bit more white to it, but maybe I'm going to mix my orange actually, instead of using my cadmium orange. I'm going to take my cadmium lemon and instead of going to cadmium red, I'm going to go to alizarin crimson, I think. And we'll see if that's the right idea. And I'm going to put a little bit of white in there, I think. And I see what it looks like on the palette. I'm going to get a brush though, and I'm going to see what it looks like on the, okay, that actually doesn't look too bad. So I can get more particular about the colors later. I try to nail it as much as I can in the beginning, and then, but I can go back and fine tune it. I don't want it to hold me up. And so I'm also, as I'm working this, I feel like I'm thinking about the setup though too. So, and this orange does repeat itself down here. And I'm also thinking almost my horizon line becomes these stripes that are part of the material. So I do have these stripes and these kind of circular moments. And actually, now that I look, so I'm thinking about content for sure, because this does speak to my childhood a bit, because we didn't have a lot of fresh things. Part of that was probably living in the Midwest in the 80s, but it's and just the time. But almost everything that I had was processed, and so that's been interesting to me. And I think it's anyway, I just think I'm excited about, I mean, right now I'm excited about canned peaches, I guess. But also, so I want to go in and pull out some of these slices that I know I need to fill this canvas to cover it. So I'm going to actually, there's a little bit, let's scrape this down. I like to keep everything open and everything's in play. I don't want to get too caught up and I can get caught up in a lot of stuff, but I don't want to get too attached to I don't want to get too attached to a certain moment in the painting, especially in the very beginning, because I want everything to be, everything's up for grabs in terms of
I
being,
can make it work.
being able to change or shift or sometimes things just flip. So
You do watch out.
okay, so I also want to put in this green that's up in the white. I keep talking about the white of the milk, and because it does go in shadow down here by this orange, and it gets lighter, so it's kind of creamy. And I'm thinking it goes. I actually am going to try a color that I never think of as. I used to not think of as a neutral, but I feel like sometimes it can be. I don't think this is the right color, but I'm going to try it. Cad red and white. I've had a couple times it's happened where that has served as a neutral. I never think of cad red as a neutral, but that is quite bright. But it's I'm going to let it be there for a minute. And then it shifts a little bit underneath this. What color does that go to? Kind of green. This ellipse. And then it shifts to, it is warmer. So I'm asking myself a question. Is this lighter or darker, warmer or cooler? It is darker, a little bit cooler perhaps. So where do I go? That's always the question. So I had cad red and white. Maybe I'll add, again, I usually don't do this, but I'm going to add a touch of raw umber. But the other thing too, I'm going to put it on with my brush. And so I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to get a little bit more raw umber. And put it in here. And so I haven't been measuring, but that I feel like I'm beginning to look inside. That's beginning to be, let me clean my brush again. I'm taking the white and I will kind of measure the angle though. Taking the white and so this is white and cad red. And then down here, it gets a little darker. There's actually some green up here too though. So let me bring this down. And I'm going to put that green in because I think that green is going to be important. And it's kind of this forest or this Kelly green. So how do I get that color? I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my phthalo green. And phthalo green is a really intense color, but it's beautiful. And it can totally kill a color, but it can also just be really, really a sophisticated color that you can mix with. So I added a little bit of cadmium orange to it, and I'm going to put this on right there. And just mixing with the white a little bit, so I'm going a little bit darker. And I can clean these up later, but I'm just kind of getting the color notes down. And then it shows up back here, but it's a little bit brighter, and there's the cloth showing through there, but I'm just going to put kind of a note up there. I'm going to bring this over, And now I'm thinking, is this about the same width as this? That's kind of interesting to me. So the two white was, if I look at these as shapes, not just as objects. So this becomes a vertical shape that's laying down. This is a vertical shape that's upright. So that's kind of interesting to me. And so again, I'm just going, and I think I want that cropped off actually. Now I'm wondering, maybe everything should be shifted over. So maybe that speaks to perhaps I should have had I should have drawn everything out beforehand. So I want to think about this for a minute. How can I activate here? Could it be with light? There's a slight shadow here. I'm trying to think about that. Could I actually put the edge of the table? Would it be like the table? Because then, let's see, if I put the edge in here, is that the same angle? Like if I put this in right here, would that be the same angle to this napkin?
뭐지? 엄마 트랙하고 스사도 자주 왔어. 배고프면
So
말해.
I'm just, yeah, I'm thinking what I should do. But I'm not gonna, I don't want it to slow. I mean, I'm aware of it, but I don't want to get frustrated with myself, which is so easy to do. So I think what I need to do is address some more back here. There's a really bright yellow here and back here, and there's some brown. So in one of these stripes. So I have this orange. I'm gonna bring that up. That was the wrong orange that I picked up on. But let me bring in this brown. And for a brown, a nice brown is, you can mix complements, right? And I find that chromium oxide and cadmium red make a really nice brown. And I'm going to put, is that a nice enough brown? That might have gone too green. I think it went too green. So, but I wouldn't have known unless I tried it. So now I'm going to go to alizarin, my other red, and chromium oxide. Jill, do you want to see if there's a couple things in the chat. I don't know if you want to check that or if anybody has a question or okay, that feels better to me. So and this is angled. So here's another thought. This is angled. I'm trying to think how I can solve this, whether it's poor planning on my part or maybe not. Maybe this is an opportunity to make a clever solution. So I know it's not, I was not blessed with fast demos. There's a lot of struggle. But okay, let's see. So one thing I'm thinking about is if this line is going down a little bit. So I'm thinking about that. So if it's not horizontal, if it's ever so slightly turned, would our eye be, would be going uphill, or is it somehow, can I lead my eye over here? So because everything's kind of heavy over here, but so I'm still, that thought is in my mind for sure. So what I'm going to do is I want to come down and bring yellow. So I'm going to take cadmium lemon and a little bit of white, and this goes towards green, compared to here. So I'm going to take the yellow. This is really bright, and it might be too bright, but it's actually a nice color. So it is a touch bright. I'm going to neutralize it a little bit with the white, but then I'm gonna also, I usually don't use raw umber this much. I'm gonna put a little raw umber in there. And I'm going to bring it in here. And maybe that's too much white though. So maybe I need to put a little bit more raw umber. But this also goes back here. And back here. And then now I'm thinking, what do I do back here? Do I just pretend like the cloth keeps going? And I guess it goes, that's interesting. Let me bring this up a little bit more. I'm going to get a bristle. I usually use synthetic like mongoose brushes, but I'm going to get, and this is kind of thin for me, but I'm going to get a hog hair brush out to spread the paint on a little bit more. And then this goes, let's see, golden here, but also feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I feel like I've created a problem for myself. But let's see how I can solve it. And I think that with painting, sometimes if you already know what the outcome is going to be in the very beginning, I mean, maybe that feels safer. And that would be safer if I would have done that. But this shows you there's a lot of struggle that goes on as I paint. I mean, I try not to second guess too much, but a lot of experimenting and a lot of questions of what happens if I put this color here or that color there? And this yellow is bothering me. But there's also a gold. So this gold color here, I'm going to put back here too. So I'm going back to, I mean, if I had a yellow ochre, maybe I would have went to the yellow ochre, but I'm taking, so I don't have yellow ochre, and I feel like this was more saturated, more kind of just more interesting color than the yellow. Yellow ochre is fine, but I kind of like colors to have a little bit more oomph or something. So I'm putting down this is the cadmium orange and the and so I'm still thinking here how to make this activated more. And I'm thinking, let me push, I need to mix some more of these colors because I feel like the paint's getting kind of thin. Because I want to, another thing, I feel like having a surface that the paint moves around, which the paint's moving around, I'm just not putting enough down. But I think it's important to have enough paint to work with. And so you can kind of, yeah, just push it around. Let's see. So as I'm putting this down, my mind, I'm thinking, did I set the still life up too fast? I'm thinking about that. But I'm also, what else am I thinking about? I'm thinking about how am I going to solve this kind of, I don't know if I call it a problem just yet, just something I'm uncomfortable with. So, so I'm thinking about that. How do I, Is it putting another object in? Is that part of it? Is it just this being in an uncomfortable place and I got to figure out how to make it more comfortable? I'm trying. So this is definitely something you're getting an inside view of my painting process. So let me try. I'm going to try. So this would be, let's do this. Everything is usually painted from observation, right? Or what I do is usually painted from observation, but I'm also thinking what would work with the painting. And I'm wondering if, and let's just try this out. I'm going to take a line here. And I know this is floor in my painting, which actually could be the same color as a table, like a wood table or something, if this was on a table. So I'm going to put down a warm, this goes to gold again. So this is just, instead of anticipating, like just thinking, what if, I'm going to put down something just to see so I can physically see it. So I'm thinking, does that do anything? If this goes, let's see, what happens if this does end? So I'm just trying it out on the canvas. And do I start to have, I do want it cropped. And I do think about the edges an awful lot. Because I feel like they're four more lines to deal with in the composition. So I just feel like, why not take that opportunity? So maybe, my husband hates it when it comes to framing or taking images because I will get really close up to the edge. And so is this more interesting? That angle's off now. So let me come up and bring this yellow. This is, I like these shapes here. This shape is off. So let me bring that up. And then also it's like, what's going on down here too, right? So let me mix up this color some more. So not that I mixed it up very well there, but this is definitely taking on a 70s, 80s feel. So I have cadmium lemon, and instead of adding white, I'm actually going to add, again, I usually don't use this much raw umber, but I'm going to use raw umber and I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to wash it. And this actually is feeling better to me. It goes kind of towards green, but and I might need to add something warmer to it. I'm going down there and also going up here. So, and now, okay, this cup actually, like I can change my point of view. And does this cup overlap into up here? It does from this point of view, but let's see, what do I want to do? So now my next question is, do I bring this down even further and have this overlap? So that's my next question. And granted, maybe I could do this on the computer or thumbnail sketch would have helped this out. But and maybe this is just an excuse, but I'd like to try to figure it out on the canvas. And I feel like if I figure it all out on a drawing beforehand, then that's part of the fun or the excitement or frustration too of the painting. So I kind of, instead of having everything dictated, like here's what the conversation is going to be like, I kind of like to, instead of having like a dialogue that you have to stick to that's been already written for you, I kind of like to have things open and say, maybe a silly analogy, but you go to a party and you don't know what the topics are going to be just yet. All the topics haven't been determined. So you just get to go and see what comes up. It's an adventure. So I'm going to go in and with some of this blue, this ellipse I should be measuring and I'm not, which again, probably shouldn't do.
Joanne wanted to know, when you're talking at the very beginning, you were talking about neutralizing, your color, putting down a color that's neutral. Do you mean that you're trying to put down the local color first? What, can you explain what you mean when you're talking about neutralizing the color?
Yeah, when I talk about neutral, it's like lessening toning down the chroma of it, I guess. Like this is really saturated. So how do I neutralize that a bit? How do I make it less intense? So that's probably a better way to say it. So, and when I look, and that's a good question, because I don't want things to look too local, right? So I really try to see things as their own color rather than labeling. As I talk, I guess I am. I try to decipher this kind of the peaches, the color of the peaches next to this gold color, next to this yellow color, and try to kind of figure out what the colors are. But so I do kind of label them as a color, but I try to keep it wide range. Like in here, there's no yellow, it's just cadmium orange and chromium oxide green. And I guess it does kind of go towards green. But so I try to keep the colors as active as I can without being garish. I feel like this painting looks garish right now. But so I guess when I talk about neutralizing a color, it's different than finding the neutral. It's how to make it active but not screen. If that makes more sense. I don't know if it does. Does that make more sense? So I want everybody to have some sort of voice in this painting, but or all the colors to work together. But some areas do need to be a little quieter than others. But I don't want anything to feel completely forgotten. Okay. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thanks, Erin. Erin, there's another question also about your lighting source, and if you could talk a little bit about how you set up your lighting source, and are you using natural light or artificial sources? Just what you're doing, and especially like right now it's nighttime. So, well, it's almost nighttime here where we are.
So I have some like track lighting in my studio that I can move around. And my studio, I don't have nice north light. I have 2 windows in my studio and I have the shades drawn on both of them right now because I know I couldn't be doing this with natural light because it's leaving me. It's the sun is setting. So so I do use natural light in the daytime, but I also will use incandescent light if I know that I'm only going to have time. I like to keep it consistent. And if I know I'm only going to have time in the night or something to paint, or I'm just not sure if I'm going to have another chance in the daytime, I will go to incandescent light. And I have some of these nice lights. I guess they're for like being online, but they're good. I got them on Amazon, and you can adjust the temperature of them, and you can adjust the brightness and things like that. So that's nice to use. But with the track lighting, I can obviously adjust the direction of them and if they're on or off, so hopefully that helps. And one thing I'm realizing now too, because this is still looking like a big mess, I brought this down to see what happens if this top of this cup, top of this glass kind of intersects or goes over this kind of boundary here. And then I'm thinking here to here, is that the same distance as from here to here. So that's kind of interesting to me. So, and what does that mean? Let's see. I'm not quite sure what it means, but it could, is it creating some sort of vertical movement a little bit? But that, I think, I wouldn't have noticed without trying this out. This is the problem with these boards whenever you're working at the bottom. And now I'm thinking there's a, let's see, there's a really dark here. Am I getting distracted though? Let's see. This gets, let me get my brush. This gets a little brighter yellow in here before the green leaves. And here too. And now I need to have a little bit. And now I'm also, as I paint, these different artists are coming into mind. And now I'm thinking a little bit about Devencorn too. And with some of these triangles and the tabletop. And so I'm thinking about him a little bit. And who else am I thinking about? Let's see. And then this, I'm going to get this gets quite purple here. And now it's like a red purple. And this red purple the top of this cup or this glass, and that red purple might react nicely with this yellow. There's the more and more I think about it. I know I often say this, but compliments, I feel like, are the answer to everything. Is when I don't know what color a object or like a shadow is or something, I often go, when in doubt, I think about the complements. And this is the drawing, it's not right. So I'm going to get a brush. So I got a little heavy-handed with the palette knife, and I'm measuring this. And that's actually too, it needs to be warmer. So I'm going to just dip my brush. Instead of scraping that off and trying all over again, I'm dipping my brush in Pure Cad Red. And I'm going to come over here and put that down. And not that this is still the right color, but, or the right drawn line. But I'm going to let it sit for a minute, which probably isn't smart on a quick demo. But again, this is, when I demo, I don't work any differently than what I do when I'm by myself in the studio. And so it's a lot about searching and just trial and error. And now what I'm thinking about with some of the tops, some of these darks, that goes more towards green. So I'm actually going to go to one of my blues and bring that up there and bring this down here. So now I'm thinking about the lines around here. And there's lines in this cloth between each color. So I'm thinking about that too. So I'm thinking how these lines are curved and they're about the same thickness of the lines between these colors. So that's something that, I mean, maybe I could have been aware of in the very beginning, but I'm just now becoming more aware of. And I'm I'm gonna take, I don't know if this is, there's some paint on here. So I don't know if this is gold enough. I might need to get a little bit yellower. So I'm gonna dip my brush in some cadmium orange and chromium oxide, which is what I did for this. But I'm gonna go more towards the orange, and I'm gonna add a touch of white in there. And I'm gonna go right over top of this. That was too much white, but I wouldn't have known. I mean, maybe I would have known, but I tried it out. And I'm gonna put this in here. Just right over top. So it will just, I know you can't do this with acrylics, but they dry, but just right over top, I'm mixing on the canvas or on the surface. And then this comes and it kind of hits the peaches. It goes underneath this glass. Where things get distorted, right? Let's see. And also I need to, this gets more green, which it's kind of a yellowy green. So how am I going to get that? I'm actually going to go to the, instead of going to blue and yellow, I'm going to my yellow, but I'm going to, at least initially, go to raw umber. And that was a little too kind of green or too neutral. So I'm just going to scrape it down a little bit. And I'm actually, what am I going to go over top of it with? I have this color here still on my palette. So I'm going to go over top of it. I think that's too light. So let me bring it over. And this almost becomes a stripe too, between where the juice or the syrup is and the line of where the syrup is and the rest of the bowl. This gets a little darker. And I think it gets kind of more violet in there. And I'm still thinking about this whole thing right now. And I'm even thinking about this napkin. Was this napkin the right thing to do? I think it was, because I think without it, it wouldn't have, I don't know, been as interesting. I think I needed something with another white in there. At least the color and the value and everything, it does get me excited. That might have went too purple. So I'm going to add a little yellow to it. And bring it in here. So it is a bit of a mess, but and then this gets darker in here. So how do I make the darker yellow? So it's a yellow that goes, I guess it does kind of go towards violet. So like I said, when I'm in doubt, I go to the complementaries. So in here, it gets a little, so this is like a yellow green. So the complement of yellow green is violet red, right? Yellow green, yeah, violet red, red violet. And so does that look like, maybe. So, but will that, I'm not convinced that the little shadow that this is casting on the cloth is actually yellow. Hold on, red violet. I didn't think for a minute, but could that guide me? And so now I'm thinking, actually, I'm going to go to my violet. I do have a violet. I usually never use my dioxazine violet as a violet, but lately I have been. So I'm going to take that violet and I'm actually going to add, instead of going towards yellow, I'm going to add a little bit of violet to it. I mean, with the violet, I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium orange to it. And That went a little too red. So complement of red is green. So I'm going to add a little chromium oxide to it to neutralize it again, because it got a little too, that's feeling a little bit better. That feels better to me. And this comes up here. But and then there's a little piece of white here and a shadow that this is casting on the white napkin. But I'm thinking, I have all these stripes and all these kind of some circles and rectangles. Do I have the shape of a triangle? You know? And I do see a bit of a white triangle here, and it is warm. And maybe it's similar to this. So I'm actually going to go back to my cad red and white and bring it in here. And so now I'm thinking, here's another thing I'm thinking, the angle of this, can that get me to over here? So can that be a direction that takes me can that be an answer to get me over here to this corner? But then I'm thinking about this corner too. So how do I get over here? So let me reinstate this a little bit more. And I'm going to bring this yellow over here. And there's a little bit of a shadow that goes, if this is kind of pink, which it is, I feel like this does begin to go a little green, but a really neutral green. So what color am I going to use? I'm going to go to, when I'm in doubt, I go to two neutrals. When I'm looking at a neutral and I'm in doubt what it goes towards, I go to two different color combinations. I go to either raw umber and ultramarine blue, and then just start from there and see if that answers the question or feels satisfying. And if that's not the case, then I go to chromium oxide and oxidine violet. And that's where I'm going right now. And we'll see if it feels right. I think it feels okay. And there's a fold in here. And also I want to get, I'm going to go in here too, wash my brush and go back to the white. So I have my white here. I'm going to go up here too, and I'm going to kind of reinstate this. And because there's a little bit, and that's what happens with this incandescent light. There's a really bright highlight there, and it kind of, you know how, now that I'm looking at this, oops, let me wash my brush again. Now that I'm looking at this, there's kind of a blue glow around the edge. Do I need that? And actually there's a little bit of this orange peeking out from the orange on the other side. So I'm actually going to go to white and a little bit of ultramarine blue, but mainly a lot of white. I'm going to go in here and put a little bit Maybe I need a little bit more blue. I'm going to put a bright highlight right here. So when I usually don't use pure white. I usually add, when I take white, I usually add a touch of ultramarine blue or a touch of cadmium lemon. And I feel like it makes, I mean, it's kind of, I feel like it makes a brighter white in some ways. And so here I'm going to go to, and we'll see if this works, because it's already pretty bright. I went towards cadmium yellow and white. And then there's a highlight up here too. And I'm going to push that towards blue, I think. And the reason I push this towards yellow is because there's some blue in there. So now let me come in and bring this yellow, should come in a bit more. And there's, I'm kind of liking this lavender up here, but actually maybe it needs to be, maybe I should measure actually for once. So okay, maybe this is a little bit higher. So it's nice when it's wet, you can just shift it if you have enough paint on the canvas. So I'm going to go in with blue and white actually, and just kind of begin to draw the, oops, I got some, begin to draw the rim of the cup. So, and that's overlapping here a bit. So let me go in. I might need to bring this down a little bit, but this gets a little darker in there. So I'm going to go to my violet that I mixed. And I think that's too violet. That's too violet. So what do? I'm going to go to a little bit of an orange to lighten it up. I might need to downplay it a little bit too. Or neutralize that a little bit, which I think I do. So, and it's going towards red. So I found I feel a good color to neutralize with is this chromium oxide that does kind of a nice job. Okay, now I'm wondering if that's flipping forward. So, but I don't want to get too bogged down with this. I want to try to push this up a little bit. I realize this is a little harsh. So how do I soften that and scrape it a bit? But I'm going to come in here with a violet, I think. Violet will solve everything. So, and over here this gets quite dark, and this goes kind of to a dark violet. Well, it's everywhere. Well, that just wrecked it, but that's okay. So I've kind of messed that up, but that's okay. I'm going to go back into this orange and bring this in. And there's actually a shadow that comes into it. And now I'm also wondering about these peaches a little bit. This comes up in here. And there's a highlight on this bowl. And then this goes a little bit, there's orange too over here. Okay, hold on just a second. So I had I worked with a really wonderful professor at MICA, Mark Carnes, and he said something to me once that is just always stuck with me. He said, Erin, instead of just putting down like a color to block in and then knowing that you're going to go back and make it better, why not kind of like make it better from the start? And then if you have to go back, you make it even better than that. And so that's always kind of stuck with me. So why not try to nail it from the beginning rather than just kind of putting a little bit like this will do. And this gets quite blue here actually, which is kind of interesting. There's a shadow here. So let me go, another blue that I feel I get with my palette is phthalo green and dioxazine violet, which I know in theory you can't mix a primary, but I feel like it's more of an optical blue. So let's see if this happens on the painting. We're going to bring this down. And then this gets a little bit more gold, comes in here. Okay, and so I'm going to push this, I think, a little bit more pink. Am I going to go pink or a little bit more violet? It's going to go, this part gets cooler. Let's see, maybe instead of that, I'll do this line here. Let me go. I'm curious. This is the color I'm curious about and how it's going to act. So I'm going to let myself explore it. So, and I don't pre-mix when I paint. I like to kind of see and then respond. So this is a really vibrant pink, but I'm curious what's going to happen. My daughter's in the background doing summer homework and not having fun. So in case you hear somebody pouting in the background, that is Camille. Okay. Because there's a fold in here that I like. And does this again speak to the stripes a little bit? Here's a section, here's a section. I'm getting it all muddied up. But again, that's something that I'm thinking about that I didn't think about in the very beginning. I was thinking more about even the process of eating or something, these materials that you would have. You would have a drink, you would have, some food in some sort of container. You would have a napkin, hopefully. So, but let me, and then it gets quite violet in there too. I want to make this look, so I have the canvas pretty much covered, but I want to get into some area to feel excited about. Because right now I just feel a little overwhelmed with everything. And I'm wondering if I could start. Okay, could I get excited about these peaches? Perhaps. So can I let myself slow down a little bit and work in a little area? Let me go more. I did go to ultramarine blue and white, but I'm going to use my other blue and white.
Erin,
Yeah.
do you want to answer a couple of questions that are in the chat while you're feeling overwhelmed to maybe?
Yes, please. I don't know if everybody,
or maybe add to it.
I don't know if everybody's bored or what.
No. I think everybody's just riveted, but there just are a couple of questions. So I'll just ask them. Let me just get back to the chat. So Elena, would love to hear you talk about your process for handling shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just ask the second question as well, and you can go from one to the other. And there's actually a third question, but we'll ask that after. And then also, looking at how much you're using the palette knife, if you could talk about what it is about the palette knife that you find appealing, and sort of when you go back and forth between brush and palette knife, and the different use of the tools.
Yeah. No, I think let's go first with, as far as shadows go. I used to be scared of shadows because I feel like things are so much easier to see, like light colors are easier to see and decipher than the shadows. But there's a lot, I feel like shadows are really helpful, especially when you try to articulate them in a more specific way. And I feel like it really helps, I don't know, make the painting sing a little bit more. And so when I look, aren't there's like these rules that sometimes, truth be told, I didn't know this until just a couple of years ago. But if I had this right, if you have a cool light, you'll have a warm shadow. And I used to just observe, and that's kind of something helpful to know, where if you have a warm light, you'll have a cool shadow. So, but when I look, really what I'm just trying to see it instead of, I'll say it's a shadow, but I try to see it as just another shape with another color. So instead of labeling things as, light and shadow, I try to see it as, here's a shape that's a color, and here's another shape that's another color. And this is the color that goes into shadow. So instead of saying it's a yellow towel, can I somehow see, kind of take that away, kind of divorce myself from labeling this as a yellow towel and shadow, and just see it as a shape and its own color. Does that make sense? So instead of seeing, what does yellow do? Or, yellow is just a dark yellow. Well, maybe it's an opportunity to find another color. So this goes more towards a kind of a red orange. And that feels kind of exciting to me, at least right now. But so instead of just going yellow and then adding purple or raw umber or black to go darker, I try to see it as another color. So, and I think the other thing that would be helpful here that I'm not doing, and I think with pattern too, it shifts, and there's actually, I missed one of these stripes. That's okay. Well, you all know because now you see the still life in front of me. But another thing that helps is when you get I'm going through, instead of taking this color here, this is an orange stripe, and I'm going to go to a darker, another color that goes a little bit more towards violet, I think. But so I don't know if that answered your question, Elena, but but even as far as tools go, I like to try to put enough paint on the canvas, and I think working with the palette knife, that forces me to. I used to always work I was kind of scared of using too much paint. I don't know why, it just felt, I don't know, dangerous to me. And I like how now I try to be a little bit more, give myself more liberty in terms of what how much paint I can use, and then I can really push it around. And I like, another thing too, I really like to keep my edges soft for as long as I can. And I find that you can make a soft edge hard very easily, but you can't really make a hard edge soft. I mean, you can, but sometimes you might have to sand it, or it's a little bit more effort. So I find the palette knife helps me keep the edges soft, and it just keeps things kind of moving around. And sometimes I use the palette knife a little too much. I think that's something I've been noticing about myself. So I try to go back and forth a little bit more to the brush, to the get a little palette knife happy, I think. This will be in shadow too. Hopefully that answered the question. But it's a way to, and the other thing too that I really like about it, and let me find an area where I can do this. I mean, I've done it some, y'all might have been seeing me, but what I do is let's see, if I go to my palette, let's see, I'm going to take a light, I like to make really thin lines with the palette knife. So I'm going to take maybe this color, and I'll just put it down. I can always scrape it off. But if I want to make a razor sharp edge, I take my palette knife and I gather the paint on this side. So here I get like a ridge of paint. And then, pardon my messy studio, and then I go over here and I put it, I don't put it like this. I have it kind of at an angle. So I'm going to try to put a really sharp edge right here. So it makes, I mean, maybe I should have chosen another color. Let me go a little bit darker. So I'm going to gather paint on the edge. I have it on the edge here, and actually that's a little oily. So let me get another color. Let me actually, because there's a little bit of light and then a little bit of dark at this ridge. So I'm going to try to put that down, and I'm going to take, let me just take chromium oxide and oxidizing violet. So I'm going to go heavier on the violet than the chromium oxide, if I can get enough paint. And I'm going to gather it on here, and then I'm going to go here, put it down. And it gives me a really, I don't know if you can see, but it's a pretty sharp line. So, so that's what I feel like I can do with a palette knife. And then if it's, I can kind of push the paint a little bit, make it a little bit thinner or thicker. I can take, it's a little bit more, what's the word? the palette knife is just, it's such an interesting tool to use, and you can really manipulate it in so many different ways. And I feel like it can be almost more assertive than the brush at times, not always, but at times. And especially in the beginning of a painting, it can be a little bit more forceful if you're trying to really get the paint down. You know, you could put it's like sometimes I think about it, it's almost like buttercream frosting or something. You can really just, it can become really kind of lush. So, and just so good. You can scrape it off, you can scrape things off, you can lay things down. It's and when I do paint, you'll probably it's like a pencil and an eraser or something. You know, I had these two tools in my hand almost always. So I don't know if that helps, but it's also, you can just try it out without getting, I mean, it's easier to clean a palette knife than a brush. You know, you could just wipe
That's
it off.
for sure.
You know, so I think that might be part of it too.
But you don't clean your brushes, so
Hey,
it doesn't
no, I
matter.
don't. I just use linseed oil or walnut oil, and I just keep them in the jar overnight. So yes, Jill, you called me out.
I know. You
No,
put them in the
that's
freezer.
it's helpful. I don't want to get all these oils in I have my studio at home. I don't want to get in the plumbing and everything. And so I was just noticing I need a harder line here to separate where the glass is and the peaches are. And then this, okay, this orange. And see, that's something, if you get enough paint, maybe I didn't put enough paint in, but you can move it down with your palette knife in a nice way. And this gets quite green up here. So let me go to chromium oxide with, let's see. Was there another question, Jill, or no? Or
There was one more. I'll read it. It says you mentioned that you tend to go either ultramarine blue or cad orange as a high tint mixture for the lights. Do you ever find neutralizing one with the other doesn't quite work and shift to another color like blue, orange, red, etc.?
Okay, so sorry, say that one more time.
You see,
So
you mentioned that you tend to go to either ultramarine blue or cad red as your high tint mixture for the lights.
oh, okay. So yeah, usually, so this is what I do. I find ultramarine blue and white. I found ultramarine blue to be such a fascinating color because there's red in it. And I feel like it's if I see like a white object in space, and if it goes towards violet a little bit, I will just go ultramarine blue and white because there's some red in that color. When I'm going to like for this highlight, for my highlights, my really like lights that are used really sparingly, I will either go to white and a touch of ultramarine blue, like a tiny little bit, or a tiny bit of cad lemon. Those are usually the two ones I go to. The cad red, I just wanted to experiment with because I felt like it looks creamier. So this is actually white with a little cad red in it. This little highlight, if you can see, is cadmium lemon and white. So hopefully that answers, but so yeah, like a high key tint, I guess I go to ultramarine blue and white or cad lemon and white usually. So but usually ultramarine blue and white. I don't know, maybe I've been on an ultramarine blue kick. But so
yeah, and if I understand the question, and if I'm not understanding it, I mean, it's coming in from iPhone, so I'm not sure
yeah.
who the person's actual name is, but you can just chime in and clarify the question, because they're asking, if that doesn't work, do you ever just shift to another color completely?
Oh, yes, definitely. Those are just kind of where I start. And it's like with the neutrals, when the neutrals are like, I think I was saying, whenever I'm hung up on, like, I don't know, like what color is this glass, that this bowl is, that these peaches are in. Sometimes when I'm stuck, I will go to either ultramarine blue and raw umber and white, and I'll try that. And let's say that gets close. and then I'll use that and kind of push it a little bit more blue or push a little bit more umber. But if that's still wrong, then I'll go to chromium oxide and violet in white. And if that gets close, then I can shift that a little bit too. Do I need to go warmer or cooler than that? And if it's cooler, then maybe I bring in the phthalo. Or if it's warmer, maybe I'll go to alizarin and the green. So I'm still trying to think. I use a lot of reds and greens for my neutrals. And that's something that I'm still trying to find a way to articulate it in a clear manner. But that's what I usually use, like chromium oxide and alizarin crimson, or chromium oxide. So chromium oxide and violet gives me like a gray blue. If it needs to be a little bit warmer, then the next step up would be alizarin crimson. It's a little warmer, but still cool. Then I mix that with my green, if that makes sense. And if it needs to be cooler than the chromium oxide and the violet, then I go to phthalo green and like alizarin or something. That wasn't clear at all. But so I have my mixtures, my green and red mixtures that I use. And so on the cool side, I will go to phthalo and the reds. On the warm side, I will go to the chromium oxide and the reds and purple, if that makes more sense.
Yeah. Lots of sense. Thanks, Erin.
Uh-huh.
And one more question. And also, Erin, you've been painting for, over an hour and a half now. So, whenever you feel ready.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if people are bored or.
No, I just don't want, I know you could paint forever and we could watch forever, but I don't want to, I want to take advantage of you. But there is a question about your home studio, how you set up your home studio, working with oil, and especially with children around, and what kind of education you have, and all that about working at home.
Yeah. No, I can definitely. I have. So this is what I do. I have. I have a little bit of Gamsol, but I usually don't use Gamsol. So I have walnut oil. So I use walnut oil and to clean my brushes between colors, and also at night I just keep things in like an old hot fudge jar. And I just put my brushes in there. So what's nice about that is, even with kids, I have 3 kids, and at night you're tired and you don't want to wash brushes. At least I don't want to wash brushes. So I just stick them in there, and then they're ready to go the next day. And but I'm lucky enough that we have an extra bedroom in our house. So that's just where I have my studio. And so setting it up, as far as fumes, I don't use any medium. With my paint, it's just the walnut oil, the linseed oil that gets in with the paint. Just that's what stays there. I don't use like Demar varnish or stand oil or liquid or anything like that. And I've heard that liquid is quite toxic. I don't know if that's still right or not, but so I just stay away from that. I always wear gloves, because if you need to answer your phone or tend to the kids or your husband or whatever, you can just take off the gloves quite easily. But and I thought also a little something someone did that I do too, at least when I stand in paint. I have an IKEA kitchen cart. IKEA has these great little carts you can make your own taboret with. You just get a piece of glass cut to fit the top of that. I mean, it could be any kitchen cart or any cart that you can use, and that's been helpful. But yeah, I try to keep everything contained in the studio for sure. So, but my kids are old enough that they know not to mess with it. So, yeah, anything else? Or any other comments or questions or requests or anything?
Yeah, I mean, that was the last one that I see in the chat, but does anybody, since Erin is not painting at the moment, I think if anybody wants to just chime in and ask.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Do you always tone your canvases?
I try to, and because I feel like it's nice to, instead of reacting against the white, you're reacting against, because I find, like, have you ever, I don't know what your practice is, but sometimes if I have a white canvas, it just takes forever to get the paint on there to actually see a light act like a light, but sometimes if you're working on white, like the darks will look dark, but then you go in with a highlight and it still looks dark. And
Mhm.
so that's what I do.
And
And
do you always tone it with the same color? Or
usually raw umber, because I
raw umber?
feel like it's it's not too warm, it's not too cool. I feel like it's a good medium kind of
that's what-
temperature. Yeah, I mean, burnt umber is good too, but I mean, people do it with all sorts of colors, like burnt sienna, and I mean, it doesn't have to be. I've actually painted over an orange painting once, and that was actually quite helpful. It was like cat orange in the background, which was interesting. But it made me think maybe I should perhaps try something different.
And do you always prefer to paint on boards as opposed to canvas?
I do. I have I like the durability of boards,
Mhm.
and even like storing and things, you can kind of stack them a little bit more easily. They won't get punctured as much.
Right.
But when I work large, like I have one of my big paintings like here, that's on linen. And so I will stretch that myself. And I do like making my own surfaces. It takes a lot of time, but it's more economical. And I think it, like, you're investing in the surface too, that it feels kind of like you're bonding with it, which is
Yep.
so easy.
I understand. All right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But one thing I did do this weekend, which is it's pretty quick, and I forgot how quick it was. I took canvas paper and I got masonite and I just glued it on the masonite and then trimmed it, and it's like ready to go. You can put a coat of gel medium or something over top of it. And then this one was actually done with paper. I took Canson, the I can't say that me tientes or whatever, that Canson paper, the tone, and I just glued it on the masonite and then trimmed
Huh.
it.
What
And
kind of glue do you use for that?
you know what? I shouldn't admit to this. I should say PVA glue for sure. But Elmer's is actually
Really?
archival.
Okay. Wow.
You're like,
Shocked.
now I'm not trusting anything from her.
No, that's gutsy. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I checked and double checked, and I had a big container of it, and you just brush it on and then put the paper on and like do it with the brayer. But usually what I usually like really working on is I take birch and put muslin over top of it, and then oil prime, and that's the kind of gold standard that I like. So
All right.
but it's more of a process than just gluing down boards and then it's dry. So but that's really economical, because you can just get a thing of birch and cut it down and then go to Joann's and get muslin. And then it's
Wow.
it's a nice service anyway.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. And one more question. Do you have a size that you tend to use most of the time, or?
I like 12 by 12s and 12s by 16s. I like those sizes a lot. And when I work larger, I like, like if I work really large, I mean, my ceilings aren't too high. So I work like 4 by 5 foot, when I work larger. But yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Huh?
I loved your demo. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Any more questions or anything?
I think we all loved your demo, Erin. I could watch you paint forever and ever and ever. And I think the best thing about it was that we got to see that, things like it doesn't always come together immediately, right away. And,
no, never.
Beauty of it. And that's the generosity of what you just did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it definitely, and that's what I
get. And then it always comes together for you.
Well, not all the time. You can ask one of my other classes. I did a painting, and it was so horrendous. But at least they saw that. I mean, it was really horrendous. I don't know if Vivian or is on here, but it was really, I mean, all of us were kind of like, we got to not look at that anymore. But it was important to do it. And I mean, I ended up painting over it, but it was a good process. I fought with it for sure. But it's not, I wasn't given that talent of just in 20 minutes knocking something out. So
but seeing how you had to make decisions about what to do with the top of the painting and shifting and putting the triangle in on the upper right hand corner, and what that did for it, because the painting needed it, and that kind of stuff was just so valuable to watch.
Good, good. No, I'm glad. I hope it was helpful. I can't do one-shot paintings very well. So they're anyway, a lot of 2 and 3 sessions or more. But
Yeah. Well, if you do keep working on the painting, you'll have to post it so that everybody
Yeah.
can see, where it
Oh.
is now, which is like at a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
And then where you take it.
Yeah. No, I have to say I am excited about the peaches, and I know those will stay for quite a while. And I mean the milk probably will too. But so yeah, no, I'll definitely keep you posted.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. If there aren't any more questions for Erin, and especially thank you, Erin, for just the generosity of this demo and your generosity as a teacher, which is just so incredible. You're so lucky to have you at the studio school.